Hey, what's going on, guys? Threat Level Midnight here, and if you read the title of the video, you guessed it, we're talking about the Sionyx Aurora Pro. And before we get started, I did not pay for this, but it also was not sent to me for free. There was a team at a police department that ordered a few of these. They ordered 3, and one of them didn't work right out of the box, and the other one was given to me for evaluation. So let's go ahead and give it a look, see what's inside the box, and see how it operates, and then we'll do some actual testing with it and see what it's capable of. All right, guys, so we're at the workbench here. I'm going to go ahead and show you how this comes from the factory. Once you open the box, it comes with this nice kind of Pelican-style hard case here. Little flaps that you open on the side. When you open it up, you'll see you have the camera. The Pro version comes with this box. The camera, it comes with a micro SD, a 32 gig micro SD, plus like the micro SD adapter. 2 batteries. The batteries are an SX50. If you look on Amazon, you can get like 4 of these plus a charging dock for like 17 bucks. These are also like just Chinese lithium ion batteries. So if you do need more batteries, super easy to come by, common camera battery. It comes with a charging cable. It's just like a old school like micro USB, a lanyard, and there's a quick startup guide that comes with it as well. But let's look at the actual unit itself. So not a bad looking unit. As far as weight wise goes, it doesn't have the battery in it yet, but it's pretty lightweight. And when I feel it compared to a PVS-14, it feels lighter than a PVS-14. And I know this has a J-arm on it too, but it does feel lighter right out of the box. And you can see a number of buttons on it and everything. We'll go over that in a minute, but I'll show you right now how you're going to insert the memory card and how you're going to go ahead and put the battery in. So if you look at the bottom of the camera, there's just like a little latch right here, and you take your eyepiece through the viewfinder, and it pulls straight out. Now this does have a rubber seal on it, and it does advertise IP6 and 7, IP67 rating. However, there's nothing really pushing this gasket down. If this was my own, I would throw it in the water right away and test that, but it's not my own, so I don't want to destroy it. But just looking at it and feeling it, I don't know how tight this seal actually is. I mean, it could be totally fine. But you can see that the viewfinder actually plugs in right here, and then you can see where your battery compartment and your micro or your micro SD card port is right there. So let's go ahead and I'll show you how to install everything. So open up our micro SD box, take out the card, and shows you what direction to put it in, and it clicks in. There's a real positive click there. I already charged these batteries off camera. Battery clips in. And then you can just go ahead and replace this this little eyepiece right here. And you see it doesn't take much to get it to clip in. So I don't know, like I say, how tight that seal is right there. Now for our first startup, you'll notice that there's a toggle switch on here. You have a camera mode, you have a video mode, you have a loop mode, playback, and then like a settings and Wi-Fi mode right here. I don't know every single in and out of this camera. I know how to use it on a functional level, enough to record with it, enough to do everything I need to do with it. You have your focusing lens up front here, and then you have your selector for day, twilight, or night, and that's just a twist over and a real positive click onto each mode here. Okay, you have your recording button on top, so we'll go ahead and we'll fire it up, and it makes a little noise, and it lets you know that it's working. And then from there, it's on video mode, and now we can switch between day, twilight, and night. And you can hear the lenses clicking around when you swap it over. But what you will notice is that the date and time wasn't set, so this red light was blinking. And there's like onboard lights on this thing, so if someone is looking at you with night vision, they're going to see this light coming off. They'll see if this light comes on. It'll be very apparent that that you have something on your head right here. You have a little knob right here that adjusts your for your viewing right here. And that's just kind of the basics, ins and outs. This is the record button right here, so you can record it here. In the settings, you can change your frame rate and your resolution, so it either records in 360 or 720. And so my gripe about that is, for $1,000, I would think that the camera could record in like 4K, you know, like an iPhone. I have an iPhone. I'm filming this video with an iPhone 11 Pro, and that records in 4K. And this thing's in 720, and it's $1,000, and it's a standalone camera. Now I know it's marketed as a nighttime camera, but I think that's kind of a shortcoming. Where for day use, you know, I don't even think that's good for day use. And I'll show you what I mean in a few minutes here. So one thing you'll notice about this is there's no onboard IR illuminator. So this is advertising itself as night vision. It's digital night vision, right? So it's a camera that can take in a lot of ambient light, and that it can process like IR. But there's no onboard illuminator, which tells me that, hey, you know, in true dark settings, this thing's probably going to struggle. And we'll try to get like a true pitch black setting for you in a little bit here so we can see what that does. I have a couple of different illuminators here. I have a Streamlight Sidewinder, and I have an Olight, their version of like the Surefire Vampire. It's not very good. It has an IR setting on it right here, but the IR has no, it can't be like focused at all. But I'll show you what it does when you supplement it with IR, and you'll see how that works. But like I say, it has no onboard illuminator, so if you don't have any ambient light at all, it's probably not going to do super well. But we'll see what it can do. So something that I wanted to touch on here is that the iPhone is recording in 4K, it can record in HD, whatever. It can record in a lot of different ways, but you can clearly see that this says Sionyx on the box. You can make out the words, you can zoom your camera in, and it'll still read the words here. And what I want to do is show you that, you know, we're maybe 7 feet away from the workbench. The camera is maybe 7 to 8 feet away. When you put that Sionyx camera on this thing, the pixel rate is so bad that these letters are all blurry and you can't read it at all. And that's kind of a problem. So daytime use, not a great camera. I'd rather just record with an iPhone in the daytime. But that's not what it's about, right? You didn't buy this camera or this night vision to use it in the daytime. So, but I'll go ahead and show you it anyways, just so you can see what I mean. Okay guys, so this will give you an idea of how well the microphone works as well, but you can see the letters. You can kind of make out these, the X is just kind of a smudge. And like I say, we're 7 feet away, and these letters are pretty large. So that kind of gives you an idea of how clear the thing is. It does zoom in, so I'll zoom it in right now. And I'll show you guys how that looks. And it is digital zoom, so it is just zooming in on the eye box itself. So once you're zoomed in, you can make out the letters Sionyx, but again, we're, you know, like 7 feet away, so that's not that impressive. But you can see how far this thing zooms in, but you do lose clarity when you zoom in, so you got to keep that in mind. All right, so now you have an idea of how clear the daytime camera is on the day setting. Let's talk about a few other things. So the zoom I didn't show you before, but the zoom, you can just use the left and right toggle switches to zoom in and out. It's kind of at a wide angle set when you first get it, so you need to kind of click it in one zoom to give you like that true 1x feel. And you'll notice on the bottom here it has this little thread adapter. Now it does fit J-arms like on a PVS 14, but I'll show you the problem with this Wilcox J-arm is that this threaded portion is just too long. That's one part of the problem. The other part is, you see on a PVS 14 it has a little notch right here. And that locks the J-arm in place. Now this one doesn't have anything to lock it in. It has a spot for a little tab right here, which you would use on like a camera mount, and which is very common. It's all the same thread pitch though for your camera equipment running into tripods. But you can see this Wilcox J-arm will not tighten down at all. It's as tight as it can go. The threads are too long. And maybe other J-arms would fit it fine, but this one that I'm using, it just doesn't work. So I can't even mount this thing to my helmet without some sort of proprietary arm or mount that makes it work. And like I say, when you're buying this, you're not buying a PVS 14. It's just not the same thing. It's not 100% designed for that. It doesn't interface with PVS 14 parts, 100%, like the mounting stuff, So you got to keep that in mind. But we'll go ahead and let it get dark outside and run this thing through its paces at night, so I can show you how it does at night and how it does with no IR illumination and total darkness, with ambient light, and with some illuminators on. All right, so here's the iPhone zoomed into 6 times. Now it is dusk and it is a little bit harder for the iPhone to collect light, especially zoomed in. And you can see how grainy it is, where it can record in 4K, but now it's in HD at at 30 frames per second. And that's kind of the downfall, or the shortfall anyways, of like cell phone cameras, is they're not designed to shoot at night, so they don't give you an accurate representation of how bright it is outside. So with my naked eye across the yard, it's about 20 yards away, like I said, I can see this just fine. But let's see how the Sionyx does. All right, so here's the Sionyx at its base zoom feature, and it's at 720p at 60 frames per second. And then we'll go ahead and zoom it in, and this is on the daytime setting. So again, those letters are not, they're not legible at all. I think it does a lot better job of collecting light. That's what it's designed for. And no matter how much I change the focus here, it doesn't seem to make the image any more clear. Now, it's not quite twilight yet. I wouldn't consider it twilight, but I'll go ahead and switch it to the twilight mode so you can see what it does. And again, you won't notice much because it's not quite dark enough for it yet. Maybe it sharpened the image a little bit, but you can't read it at all. All right, so that's kind of the shortcomings, but we'll let it get a little bit darker and we'll see how it does. All right, so now it's actually dusk and it's pretty dark out here, and I know that an iPhone would perform pretty poorly, but even in its regular daytime mode, this thing collects light a lot better than an iPhone. But you can see how grainy it is, so let's go ahead and switch to twilight mode and see if that fixes it a little bit. So you can see when I switched to twilight, it instantly cleared up the graininess problem. So it does require some ambient light to get it going. And there is quite a bit of ambient light. It's still fairly bright outside. But the twilight mode gives you a more accurate representation of what you can see, and then it adds to it just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is, in twilight mode, I'm going to walk across the field of view of the camera, and I'll have something in my hands, and we'll see if we can identify what it is. All right, so right away you can tell I have something in my hand, but it's not super clear what it is. And without that pistol light, you probably wouldn't be able to see it at all. And the next item here looks like a handgun as well. Actually a cell phone. And third and final, I think this one's pretty obvious. Looks like I have a rifle in my hand, pointed at the camera, and bam. All right, so now it's totally dark outside, and you can see that you can't see the back wall anymore. There's some ambient light on the back wall from a light that's shining off of it. And that little playhouse with the bag on it is completely invisible. So let's go ahead and change it to twilight mode. And you'd see that enhance the image quite a bit, but you still really can't make anything out. Let's go all the way to night mode. Alright, so now you can see that you have a pretty good view of the backyard there. There is a lot of ambient light from neighboring yards. I mean, I'm in a neighborhood and everyone's got like kind of hanging string lights here. So you can see it. Now let's try a couple of illuminators, and we'll start with the O-light illuminator and see if that helps. And you can see that you lose the color scale, but you do get quite a bit of visibility off of it. And I'll turn this one off. We'll go ahead and try the Streamlight Sidewinder. And the Sidewinder doesn't have any focus whatsoever, but you can see it off the lemon trees right there. It helps just a teeny bit, really for inside of a room or doing tasks, things like that. Other than that, it doesn't work at all. But you can tell that even at a distance of 20 yards, you really need an illuminator to make this thing work. So let's go ahead and try the Streamlight TLR VIR, which is the IR laser and light combo I have on my rifle. And we'll see how that performs when we're looking through this thing. And you can see that the illuminator, and this is with the Villain Weapon System enhanced focusing lens, very usable. You can see the laser just fine. The illuminator lights up, but as soon as you go under IR Illum, you lose the color scale that the camera is capable of recording in, and it goes pretty much just to grayscale. So you can see it would be effective for shooting, at least from the static position right here, and it works at least a little bit. But with no light at all, it does seem to have some limitations. So now I'll go down range and I'll walk in front of the camera and see if you can identify what I have in my hands. Alright, so right away when I come out, you can definitely see a dark object in my hand. Looks like a rifle, and I'm shining the IR illuminator right here, but you can't say 100%. Alright, so now what I want to show you guys is, this is the view with an iPhone adapter on a PVS 14. It's a Gen 3, and you can see that when it's turned on, it's focused on the back, and you can see the wall just fine. But again, it would be nice to have an IR illuminator, and the next thing I'm going to show you is what the Sionyx Aurora looks like under night vision while it's filming. So if someone else had night vision on, what would they see when they looked at you? All right, so obviously if this was helmet mounted, you would see, you know, your face would be blocking that light right there. From the left side, you have a green light that indicates that the thing is powered on. When you walk around to the right side, you can see that this light indicating that the recording is on. And with the naked eye, it's a bright red light. And as I move backwards, there's still that bright red light right there. So it's not so covert if you're trying to do some sort of, you know, assault in the dark. If someone else has night vision, they're definitely going to pick up on it right away. And so what I'm going to show you now is just what the PVS-14 looks like just walking and using it for navigation. I'm just going to walk through the backyard. You can see how much light it collects. It collects quite a bit, although it is green, and there's tons of ambient light. You can see plenty well right here. All right, so you got the idea of how the PVS-14 is, and now you can see how the Sionyx is when you're walking. You can't see it through the camera because you're just looking through one eye, but there's an issue of latency where it takes time for the image to get transmitted and put in the viewfinder, and it's a little bit delayed, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to navigate with this. And like I say, I don't have a helmet mount for it, so I'm not going to be able to shoot with it anyways, but there is some sort of delay right here. But you can see that it's still trying to generate a color image, and it does a pretty good job. All right, so here's what the PVS-14 sees when the illuminator and laser is on. And it's a lot brighter than through the Sionyx. It picks up on the illuminator and laser a lot better. And under night vision, you can see the point of the laser a lot better than what's being shown here. All right, so what I'm showing you now is a view from inside my closet with the PVS-14, and you can see that it has an onboard illuminator, but it is 100% pitch black. There's no ambient light in here at all, so I have to run this illuminator. So you can see it sees just fine in here. I'll turn the illuminator off, and you probably won't be able to see anything at all. So now with the illuminator off, you can't see anything. Illuminator on, and then here's that O-light illuminator. So you can see that in total darkness, even a PVS-14 needs some IR illumination. So let's try the Sionyx out. All right, so you can see with the Sionyx, all we get is this grainy image. We don't see anything at all. So I'll go ahead and kick on the illuminator. And you can see that that's a pretty good smooth image. It does a good job picking up the light even with zero light conditions. So I'm across the street from my house, and there's a big drainage ditch over here, and it's probably 100 yards long. And you can see that there's ambient light everywhere in the neighborhood from all the lights, so it does pretty well in here without any illumination whatsoever. But let's say you're using it as like a surveillance device. Maybe you're a brand new detective and you're setting up on a house, and this car just pulled up. All right, now I'm only maybe 30 yards away, which is very unrealistic distance for conducting surveillance, but let's see if I can pull a license plate off this car. And I'm zoomed in all the way now, and there is zero chance of getting a license plate off that car, or any car for that matter. I don't think it could do it with a daylight camera, hardly, if I'm being completely honest. And then let's look at the house. Now, if you look at the house, could you technically see a person leaving the door? Yeah, maybe. But would you be able to make out their facial features and identify who they are? Like, absolutely not. So, that being said, in a police capacity doing surveillance, could you see a human? Sure, but would it do you any good for identification purposes or tracking purposes or maybe locating a vehicle? Chances are it probably won't. And you can see the distinct difference where there's ambient light out here hitting and there's no ambient light where the shadow is. Now, like I say, this camera does a really good job of picking up ambient light and giving you a pretty good smooth image when there is lots of ambient light. So I'm really looking forward to taking it out to the range and seeing how it performs out there. Alright guys, so I schemed up a way to get this thing rigged onto my helmet with my my Wilcox J-arm, and all I did was just put a couple of washers on there. And you can see I'm looking around my garage. There is some ambient light. There's like a little dim night light up here. There's a blue light coming from a light bar charging and a cordless mower battery charging. Okay, so you can see that this image looks pretty good, but guess what? That's with the O-Light illuminator on. So the garage, and not to mention this thing creating ambient light right here. So you see that the angle that I'm filming at here is all crooked and upside down, and I don't know how I'm going to transfer this when I edit this video, because this is the way it has to be when you do this. But when I turn off the illuminator, bloop, you get almost nothing. You see the red light reflecting off of the garage door button onto the car, and it's still giving you color. But as you get into the dark, you really can't see anything at all. And as soon as you turn illuminator on, nice, clear, smooth image, which is good, but this thing doesn't have an onboard illuminator. So people will say, hey, why don't you just run an onboard illuminator on your helmet? Well, if you shoot night vision at all, you'd know that if you put an onboard illuminator on your helmet, the splash from the illuminator is going to backlight your rifle, and the only thing you're going to be able to see is your rifle illuminated super bright, and your target is barely going to be visible at all. So kind of disappointing when I go into the garage here and I run no illuminator. You know, it doesn't do much, especially when you're looking, like I say, into the dark area here. It really requires an illuminator. All right, guys, so this is the PVS-14 under the same exact conditions. You can see it's even picking up other ambient light sources that the Sionyx wasn't, like on the dash of the car up there on the garage light. But without any illumination, the PVS-14 can still see, and it still does a much better job of collecting ambient light. And it's because it's an image-intensified device. These are two very different operating systems, but you can very clearly see, you know, over here is, you know, daylight bright. And the other thing that I'll say is that you don't understand how different the PVS-14 is through an iPhone, because you're looking at how the iPhone filters the PVS-14 image, not just how you see it with your naked eye, because the iPhone does a poor job of transmitting light and focusing. So every time you see something bright, the iPhone adjusts and changes the image. But the PVS-14 is far superior for this kind of stuff. All right, guys, so you've seen some kind of like backyard and benchtop review of the Aurora Pro compared to the PVS-14. And again, just like in that last clip, I'll reiterate that looking through a PVS-14 through an iPhone camera doesn't show you the real picture of what it can actually see. And this garage test was kind of a case in point where the image intensified technology does a far superior job of collecting ambient light and turning that into an image that's usable. Now this camera, to me, I think it does a phenomenal job of picking up when there's a decent amount of ambient light out there. So I will say that I'm more impressed at how it does in the twilight and with the ambient light than I thought it would do. And then basically, I knew this review wouldn't be complete if I couldn't helmet mount it and shoot with it. So basically all I did was just stack two washers underneath my Wilcox J-arm, and now it fits. But you'll see that when I put it on the helmet, it's kind of cockeyed. Let me grab my helmet here and just show you. And this is a Narotos Tatum mount, and it's adjustable 9 ways from Sunday. So it's kind of crooked here, and with a rectangular viewfinder, that means it's going to be kind of a diagonal shape. It's not fully diagonal, but it's a little cocked off, and it's upside down. So if you're disregarding all the little heads-up display information in here, because it has the accelerometer and the GPS and a compass, if you disregard all that stuff and you're not using that, it's not a big deal. If you did need it, it would be kind of difficult because you're running this thing upside down and at an angle. But at the end of the day, I was able to get it on. But you can see this right here too. This is kind of a problem for heavy use, is that because it doesn't have anything to lock the J-arm onto the body of it itself, see that? I can just twist it back and forth really easily, and that's kind of a problem right there. So is it rugged for combat use? Would I want to jump with it, run around with it? No, not really. Am I going to do it night shoot with it? Yeah, absolutely. I'll get some good film shooting under night vision with this thing. But like I say, for this type of task, the PVS-14 is far superior. Okay, guys, so we're out here at the range. The targets are about 30 yards away, and there's really good starlight right now, and I have chem lights on the ground, or glow sticks, whatever you want to call them, but you can't see the targets through this thing whatsoever. There's good
ambient light coming from the city. We're out here in the middle of the desert though, so there's nothing close, but you can clearly see that there's just really nothing going on here. So if I add external illumination, oh, wham, you can clearly see the targets. We have paper set up over there and 2 steel, but this thing really requires an external illuminator. Yeah, it's like my naked eye can see better than this camera, which is unfortunate. It's starting to get brighter out here. It's starting to adjust a little bit more, but I don't know. It's just not the same without the illuminator on. You still see everything over there? I haven't put on the IR illuminator yet. I'll go ahead and kick it on.
I got it.
And you can see as soon as I put the IR illuminator on, it really washes out the targets, because the camera then has to focus on the shooter itself. And this is without the illuminator on. Now with the PVS-14, you don't need an illuminator at all. That's how much light's out here tonight, and that's why I was surprised when we fired this camera up that it wasn't working at all, because I thought it was a very bright night. Even though there was no moon out, there was tons of starlight and tons of city light that was spilling over. And so the rest of this video is just going to be, just some drills that we recorded. And you can see that we had to rig up, the illuminator the entire time. And at the end, it just got annoying having to run around with the camera and the illuminator. And if you're too far away, the illuminator just washes out because the camera focuses on the shooter and you lose the targets. So in the end, in some of these future videos, we ended up throwing the illuminator on a tripod by itself over where the targets are. And so you could at least see them in the video, which was disappointing, because at least, when you're thinking about, what can this camera be used for? It's not really great for like law enforcement surveillance. It's not a good helmet mounted option. So you'd think, hey, well, maybe it's a good content filming option, but it's like you need to scheme up a series of illuminators to make it work right. And that was especially frustrating, especially because, in this video right here, or anything at distance, you can't even see the targets at all. It's just only shooter. So that's disappointing, and I think it's important to keep this in perspective when you're thinking you're going to get some sort of bargain night vision device. That's just not what this is. It's not a PVS-14, and like I say, the PVS-14 can function without an illuminator at all, especially in these conditions, which I thought were very bright. And then, with the flood on the illuminator that's at the camera, the illuminator on my rifle is pretty bright, but it's so focused over here that it can't even pick it up. And it's not that we didn't have a good time, because we had a blast out there shooting some film at night, and at least being able to pick up some of our shooting at night. So I will say it was still cool to have the ability to at least get the videos that you see here. But I guess I would have just seemed to think that the performance would be a little bit better, especially when on their website, on Sionyx's website, they advertise the Pro as being a starlight only night vision. Like, it doesn't even need the moon like the other models do, and that's just so far from the truth. I can't believe that they could even say something like that in good conscience. Like, they must only be using this thing in cities or in urban areas where everyone's got porch lights and stuff on, because this was a very, like I said, this is a very bright night. And now you can see in this film, we have the illuminator on the targets so that you can at least see them while we film. And I'm shooting a pistol, and again, I don't need an illuminator with the PVS-14, but the Sionyx needs an illuminator or else it's super grainy. And in this string of videos, we actually were using a second illuminator from the Streamlight Sidewinder on a really dim setting so that you could even see me shoot at all, or else I'd just be a grainy blob. So we're running twin illuminators right now, and 3 illuminators if you count the one on the rifle. So there's one with the camera, one on the targets, and one on the rifle. But I hope you guys like this video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I hope this helped you.